Just the title on this one gets me. Seattle business owner who championed $20 minimum wage now blames it for her business closing. We got Bebop Waffle House in West Seattle. Yeah, all thumbs up for that wage increase, but then the reality sets in and, closed. Let's get into it. Here we go.
It's never an easy decision to shut down a staple in the community, but the owner of Bebop Waffle Shop tells me what the estimated cost of doing business due to this minimum wage increase, closing her doors, was the only choice.
We need to fold up the tables and just sweep the floor.
It's the end of an era in West Seattle.
No, this was my dream, to own my own cafe, to run it how I want to, and to really be in service to people.
More than a decade ago, Karina Lukenbach opened up her business. She served breakfast to the West Seattle community for years.
There's a waffle bar of things.
Now, her dream comes to an end.
I've cried every day.
The tough decision to close is due to several reasons, including less foot traffic and rising costs of goods. But Karina tells me the final straw is the city's increasing minimum wage.
Just for me, the increase would cost me $32,000 more a year.
She says she's all for.
So $32K, not a big chunk, but if that is in addition to you already just barely covering things, then you know that, this is a no-go. This is just done. Business over. They just can't handle these incremental rises in the minimum wage just because people feel, well, the wage workers, they need decent wages. Yeah, they do. But there's this little thing called profit. And if you don't make any, this is literally how that goes.
Workers getting paid the most. Unfortunately for her, she just can't afford to keep up with the change.
Especially after the election, I think the hardest.
All right. Especially after the election. What happened after the election? Nothing really happened. Seattle voted in wage increases. That has happened. But, this is Seattle. You know what I mean?
Thing that has really been for me to close is taking a safe space away from people. The stories of what it meant to people to come in and feel safe and to feel welcomed. I didn't know.
For people who live in the area.
So Seattle's probably one of the gayest cities out there. I mean, literally, it's one of the gayest cities. It just is. LGBTQ for days. But this has nothing to do with that. And this has nothing to do with safe space. This has to do with straight up economics. And if you can't make a profit, things get closed. That's bottom line. That is just reality. And that's the reality I see not being recognized by so many of these small businesses that think, well, this is the American dream. Have your own business and, don't do that 9-to-5 thing. Just, go out and get what's yours. But it's got to make sense. And so many of these businesses flat don't make sense. And, they certainly don't make sense when you've got the city going, you need to pay your workers more. Well, yeah, but at what expense? Oh, business is closing, even less tax revenue now.
Her shop is more than a business. It was a part of the community.
Happy that, in a way, that a friend may have less stress in her life.
While a decade of waffles is already wrapped, for one last night, it's alive again as Karina rings in the new year and its new changes with her West Seattle family and friends.
But we're going out celebrating because I'm really, really proud of what I did.
For businesses that provided tips to their employees, the minimum wage change is a 20% increase from what they were paying before. Seattle's minimum wage now is $4 more than the rest of the state. Reporting in Seattle, I'm AJ Janavel, Fox 13 News.
This is just one of those Democrat-run policies where you're like, yeah, that's probably not going to work out all that well. And while everybody always wants to say, oh, yeah, I mean, not everybody, particularly business owners that are reasonable, they recognize that you can only afford what you can afford within the marketplace. And then you got to be able to make some profit, because if you don't, you're done. And that is literally, that's the epidemic of businesses that we are seeing close right now. Even big companies like Starbucks are closing businesses that are either on the cusp because this minimum wage is going up, or they've got safety concerns. Not hearing that so much in this waffle shop owner, but, the title here, and this made the New York Post. Seattle waffle shop owner shuts down business over 20 plus minimum wage law. I've cried every day. That sucks. And as a fellow business owner, I mean, what this individual is going through, it's terrible. I never want to see a business close. I just don't. As a business owner, multiple small businesses, you never want to see a business go out, just boop, done. You just don't want to see that because you want other business, unless it's a real competitor. If it's a direct competitor, see you later. Let's re-up some advertising. Let's go, boys. And girls. So, this notion that you can have your cake and eat it too, it just doesn't exist. And we are in that time period right now where folks are going, I supported the minimum wage and yet my business won't make it. Yeah, that is what's happening. You've got the reality. This is a reality check. This is a reality call. And, whether this story would have happened without this without the minimum wage hike in Seattle, maybe, because you're seeing that happen. They cited foot traffic, and this is in West Seattle. Let's take a quick peek and see where Bebop Waffle House maps. All right. So Southwest Admiral Way and 44th. So it's in the, I'll zoom out there. It's in the Admiral District of West Seattle. So, good area. But then again, you've got commercial areas all over the country basically saying we've got nobody in the buildings. Today, first official day back for Amazon, 50,000 employees in Seattle, 10,000 employees in Bellevue. That are being mandated to come back to the office 5 days a week. West Seattle, it's got issues like that as well. You just don't have as many people commuting into the office structure. Foot traffic was what's mentioned here. So now you've got foot traffic on top of economics. And so, most of us that don't have businesses in Seattle, that don't have a civic structure, municipal structure that's dictating what you pay your employees, you let the marketplace take care of that. Yeah, that's that's a big part of what's going on. The owner of a popular waffle shop in West Seattle has said that she had no choice but to shut down her business after the city's new minimum wage law went into effect. I mean, what did you think would happen? If you're already on thin ice. And then you go, workers of the world unite. This is the greatest thing ever. Oh, yeah, I can't stay in business. That is the real reality, right? That's the reality check. Yeah, but you still got to make a profit because otherwise this doesn't work. And so many businesses are right there right now. Bebop Waffle Shop, which was founded by a former New York City resident more than a decade ago, closed its doors for good on Monday. I've cried every day, told Fox TV. I mean, this is on the main drag. This is on Admiral and California. California is a big north and south street in West Seattle. And this is in, the commercial district on kind of the north end of West Seattle. It's a few miles away from downtown Seattle. So this is not, Seattle proper, and this is definitely not downtown Seattle. It's a smaller base that it pulls from, but it pulls from West Seattle. And this kind of just goes to show that, without business fundamentals, which is you got to be able to make some money. If your employees are making money, hey, great. But if they're out of a job, that's a problem, right? Yeah, I'm going to need to let you go. How come? Well, minimum wage just went into effect and I can no longer afford. She said $30K. It's a huge chunk. Lunkenbach, who founded Bebop after more than 10 years ago, after relocating from New York to the Emerald City, said that her business has already been suffering from high inflation, which caused the price of food to spike. That's Joe Biden's America. How did that work out? Not all that great. Yep. Waffle Shop also have been hamstrung by lower foot traffic in the city as a result of many people working from home. So you've got this big push because the ecosystem out there is not doing well. And the ecosystem, meaning all of those small businesses like Bebop Waffle Shop that pay taxes, that pay, that cover the overhead of the business owner, of the building owner and all that stuff trickles down. And most cities right now don't have enough taxation coming in from not only small buildings like this, but big buildings, because big companies like Amazon are just now dictating that everybody needs to come into the office 5 days a week. Interesting story on that is Washington State Department of Transportation asked Amazon hey, could you maybe hold off just a few more months on bringing everybody back to the office for 5 days a week? Because we're going to shut down Interstate 5. 2 of the lanes are going to be shut down, causing massive pushback in traffic. Traffic's going to be more of a nightmare than it already is. But then you add on 50,000 employees coming into the office every day, it just puts pressure on an already congested system. So that's going to happen. Meanwhile, in New York City, you got a toll of $9 to come south of 44th or 45th, whatever that is. $9 to come into the downtown New York City. I mean, that's $9. Just poop. Yeah, there's $9. We do that going across 520. It'll be like $5. And I'm like, this cost me $10 going both ways. For what? For what am I getting from this? Yep. Get to live in Seattle, right? I get to be there. Waffle Shop has been hamstrung by lower traffic. Minimum wage increase was the last straw, she said. I get that. That sucks. But it's also kind of like, we knew this was coming, and this is the reality of trying to run a business in Seattle. That's why I cannot recommend buying a rental property in Seattle, just because, the onerous requirements of landlords in Seattle is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous, along with this kind of thing, which is, hey, let's just keep jacking up that minimum wage and we'll see what happens. Bebop and Waffle Shop, boop, down. This is financially just not going to make sense anymore, because just for me, the increase would cost me $32,000 more a year. Luckenbach, who had named the cafe after her late dachshund, said that while in theory she supports workers earning a higher minimum wage, in practice, she's been unable to keep up with the change. That is Democrat, that is liberal policy in a nutshell. I want things to be better, but the reality is, that isn't going to work. That isn't going to work. It's kind of like President Biden bestowing on George Soros, the highest civilian medal in all of the land, to a guy who has done more, George Soros, at basically destroying the fabric of society by, getting behind all of these district attorneys, all of these very progressive district attorneys, basically let the criminals just walk free, or never incarcerated them in the first place. And they supported, Black Lives Matter, and they supported defund the police. Policies that we know have had a negative impact all across the country. Yet Joe Biden is handing out the medal. He's handing out a medal. I was like, what are you doing? What is wrong with you? And that's the thing here. In practice, she's been unable to keep up with the change, because the reality sets in. Hey, this is what I would like to see, and this is what I believe in. But the hardcore reality is, and that's where conservatives would say, nah, you got to let the marketplace take care of that. And wherever that wage, comes in at, well, then it is what it is. Some people are going to be willing to work for that. Some people aren't. And then you're going to have people saying, well, if you can't pay your workers a fair amount, well, then maybe it's not a viable business. Or maybe you need to make adjustments. But so many of these companies have already made all the adjustments. And you know what I mean? They're doing what they can to stay in business, but Previously, large employers in Seattle whose payroll numbered more than 500 workers were required to pay a minimum wage of $18.69 per hour. Small employers with 500 or few workers had to pay $18.69 if the company did not contribute at least $2.19 an hour towards medical benefits if the employee did not earn sufficient tips to meet a combined minimum compensation of $20.28. That tip credit went away. And the new $20.76 per hour law, which is $4 higher than Washington State's minimum wage requirement, applies to large and small businesses. It also eliminates tip or benefit credits. Just all of a sudden, here's your new minimum wage. And so that's when the reality sets in of, oh, this is really a thing. This is really what we're dealing with. This is going to cost me XYZ. We don't have this. We don't have this on the books. This does not exist. This increase in overhead, automatic increase in overhead, while maybe good for the employees, in theory, when they don't have that job, not as good. Not as good. And I say that, very sarcastically. Because that's where the rubber hits the road. And that is what is wrong with most of this policy that tries to, let's be better human beings. Yeah, that's fine. Let's treat everybody great. All right, that's fine and all. But you still got to make a profit. So, and Seattle's expensive. I mean, Seattle is one of the most expensive cities in North America, period. Everything is just expensive. And you start to realize that when you go to other cities that are not as expensive. West Coast cities are just everything is more. Everything is more. Luckenbach, who is gay, said the hardest thing about shutting down her business is that it takes away a safe space for people. All right. You know what? If you can provide a safe space and stay open, hey, great. But I don't think there's any shortage of safe spaces in Seattle. I really don't. West Seattle, yeah, that's probably a little bit of a different story. Not as many there as you're going to have, say, up on Capitol Hill. Even on Capitol Hill, you're having a bunch of businesses shut down because things have just gotten too expensive and people can't jack their waffle costs through the roof to make this go. People will only pay so much for these commodities. And then they say, nope, we're not going out. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. Stories of like what it meant to people to come in and feel safe and to feel welcomed. I didn't know, she said, wiping away tears. Well, unfortunately, this is the hardcore reality, and it is what it is. It is what it is. And for the rest of us kind of looking in from the outside, we've been, looking at the whole minimum wage issue going, good luck with that one. I mean, can't wait to see how that one works out. And we literally, when this stuff was announced, we literally said that how many businesses are going to go out? How many businesses are going to go out as a result of this new minimum wage law? Because it's not taking into account the basic economics of a small business. It's just not. And then we end up with this, kind of this waffle sob story. And you're like, no, this is just absolutely normal. This is what happens. This is the evolutionary process when a business cannot compete and it gets an artificial outside cost thrown on top of everything else. And for these businesses, just getting through the pandemic, you're shut down. Remember our genius governor here in Washington State just shut down everything, restaurants included. And so the process of staying open just becomes even more difficult. And this is not shocking news. This is just normal news when you mess around with cost of doing business and that business can't support it. It's pretty simple stuff. But I think what is always shocking to me is to hear people's perspective of the reality, which is, I'd love to see everybody making all this money. Yeah, that's great and all, but that comes out of profit. So what are we going to do here? That's the big kicker, right? Because there's lots of businesses that have stayed in business, a lot of businesses outside of Seattle that aren't being impacted by that can offer cheaper products because they're paying their folks less and they've got folks that can work at that rate. You got cheaper rent and you've got everything is cheaper outside of Seattle. And that is because of policy that gets placed on the daily. You got this law, you got that law, you got, just a bunch of nonsense and you're driving business out. Cause and effect. There you go. All right. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.